Does Attorney General Keith Ellison bear some responsibility for why this fraud was so widespread and was able to go on for so long without being noticed?
Do you find it concerning that all of the people that were actually investigating and prosecuting this crime just walked out? Do you find that concerning?
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey left a Fox News host stunned and scrambling to cover his tracks, and we've got the crazy footage. That's right, a Fox News host had no comeback to the mayor on the topic of a controversial fraud investigation which has exploded into public conscious after investigative journalist slash champion grifter slash professional Prince Joffrey impersonator Nick Shirley made a totally legit, professional and vibes-based investigation into the Somali community there. I'm going to show you this wild clip and then break down the insane backstory behind it, so make sure you watch until the end, also because I put all the best jokes at the end anyway, because I'm an idiot. And don't forget to subscribe. Okay, let's get into this.
So Governor Walz has decided he's not going to run for re-election. Does Attorney General Keith Ellison bear some responsibility for why this fraud was so widespread and was able to go on for so long without being noticed?
Look, there have been investigations into this fraud now for years. People have been prosecuted, people have been convicted, and that's the way it should be. When you commit a crime in this country, you are held accountable and you go to jail as an individual.
He's the only person that can talk about jail and make me feel slightly aroused. My God, he's charismatic. Fraud, jail, look at my sexy eyebrows.
You go to jail as an individual. Entire communities, entire populations are not held accountable for the actions of the individuals that actually did it. And so that's where my position is. And again, if we care about the investigation of these crimes, and I do you find it concerning that all of the people that were actually investigating and prosecuting this crime just walked out? Do you find that concerning?
We just cover it and we see where the facts lead us, and we will report on it. And that is why we so greatly appreciate your time and having you come in and weigh in on these things. I'm sure that's the case there, Griff. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Jacob Frey, Mayor of Minneapolis. We appreciate it.
It's rare. I got to say, it is rare to see a Fox News host stumble over their words because they are professional. They are premium top-tier level grifters. They're not social media age grifters, many of them, but they are old-fashioned pros. They're like radio grifters. Like you could like give them a topic and they could bullshit about it and make up facts on it for like 10 years. No sweat. It's crazy. He actually stumbles because this guy is like exposing why this whole angle is bullshit. What he's really doing there is saying, we're not supposed to talk about that. Our viewers aren't supposed to know about that, you know. but he geniusly covers it up by saying, he leans into the, we just report the facts statement, which is fascinating. I mean, someone told that to Fox News' lawyers because they argued in court, successfully, I might add, that Fox News wasn't actually a factual service. It was supposed to be thought of as more entertainment, and that the average viewer would understand that their hosts were sort of more about hyperbole and opinions rather than objective facts and logic. That was an argument made in court. They made that argument during the Carlson Tucker lawsuit, during the Dominion lawsuit, basically argued that they were entertainment, that nobody would take their stuff seriously. I mean, the problem is obviously that's a very disingenuous argument because the underlying argument is nobody with a brain would take our content seriously or wink because they know who their audience is. But in the fraud case, the actual non-Fox News style facts of the matter are this. These prosecutors all resigned because of their concerns the case was being politicized. Look at this.
A top prosecutor and 5 others in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minnesota have resigned. One of those prosecutors is Joe Thompson. He's the guy who has been leading the cases of fraud in Minnesota, those investigations and charges. The 5 others are also involved in prosecuting Vance Belter, the man accused of assassinating former Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, who were shot and killed in their homes last summer. So what comes next in those cases? Here's a former prosecutor who used to work in that office.
Those cases are going to be impacted by losing experienced prosecutors, without a doubt. How it ultimately impacts, I think, remains to be seen. But this is not a positive development for bringing people to justice in these fraud cases, and it's not a positive development for these other cases that you mentioned, getting justice in the murder of Melissa Hortman.
Well, as far as Margaret's concerned, bummer about Somali fraud being harder to investigate, but making it harder to investigate the murder of, Democrats, good, presumably. And their reasons for resigning are not ambiguous. They openly have said it's because of political partisanship and the fact that they feel like, their job is not being done properly. They're being pressurized to do things that are not, independent and non-biased like they're supposed to be as prosecutors. Tim Waltz said about the resignations, "This is a huge loss for our state. This is the latest sign that President Trump is pushing non-partisan career professionals out of the Department of Justice." Another more specific concern they had for leaving the investigation was that they were being pressured to investigate the widow of the woman who was killed in Minneapolis by ICE, which is obviously batshit insane. Now let's bring this full circle. For those unaware, the crazy takeover of Minneapolis recently by Trump's troops was inspired by the tepid testimony of Nick Shirley, the 23-year-old sentient eyebrow. Testimony which caused old man Smelly Yellow Trump to wake from a deep nap and start yelling racist slurs.
Somalians ripped off that state for billions of dollars, billions, every year. Billions of dollars, and they contribute nothing. We're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain.
Irony, as ever, completely lost on Trump's peanut brain. That's right, part of the reason Trump's imperial forces are now marching on the rebel base in the ice planet Minnesota, is because of the journalism of a 23-year-old man-baby who seems not just to struggle with the English language, but to actively have it as a sworn enemy. Something that is clear within just a few seconds of hearing him speak in an interview.
My video on the expose of the fraud in Minnesota is the most viewed video ever by a creator, longer than 10 minutes, than anybody other than the name of Mr. Beast. Altogether, it did around 500 million views.
Wow, those were almost 4 complete sentences, almost joined in a way that makes sense. Almost. And then there's this clip from the interview, which is going viral for all the wrong reasons.
Who do you think are the 3 most benevolent billionaires?
What do you mean by the word benevolent?
Just well-intentioned, positive billionaires who you think are creating, net positive societal progress.
Trump? Our president?
I'm speechless. It's like, you might as well have been like, who do you think are good billionaires? What do you mean by word Doug? Now, I'm not saying this guy didn't uncover any fraud in Minneapolis, quite the opposite, because I think finding fraud in the government grant program is about as difficult as finding a fresh poopy in Trump's diaper. But what is even more clear is that this became a perfect circle jerk for MAGA. Fraud in a liberal state by non-white people, by God! Now, obviously, medium fraud potentially done by minorities in liberal states is outrageous and un-American and compelling, whereas the white, or orange, Trump and his oiks openly stealing billions from the American people in the form of crypto scams and the like, right in front of their eyes, is good and proper and the American dream. Trump pardoning a guy who single-handedly caused $1.9 billion in fraud, commuting his jail sentence, and ending him having to pay back money to his victims? No big deal, totally fine, not newsworthy.
I'm totally disgusted because it wasn't only myself, it was my elder mother in her 90s and my sister as well. We all got defrauded.
That was Carol Ann Turturra, one of more than 10,000 victims of fraudster David Gentile, whose 7-year prison sentence was shockingly commuted by President Trump just a few days ago. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison. He served only about 12 days. And when you read the letters of his victims that the prosecution submitted to a judge earlier this year, they're really heartbreaking. Senior citizens who can no longer afford to retire, who can't afford vital medical treatments to pay for their disabled children, all because of this more than $1.6 billion Ponzi scheme, according to prosecutors.
My late husband had just died, and I was told, wonderful products to get into. You've got to do this. Let's get your family into them. I mean, my mother lost over $100,000. My sister is in the same boat as I am.
What would you say to President Trump if he were watching right now?
I'd ask him why he did this. It makes no sense.
And that is the question. Why on earth would President Trump commute the sentence of this fraudster? Well, here's what the White House said when asked earlier this week.
This is another example that has been brought to the president's attention of a weaponization of justice from the previous administration, and therefore he signed this commutation.
So who brought this alleged weaponization of the Justice Department to President Trump's attention? Who? I asked Caroline Leavitt. She did not respond, but I'll tell you who it was not. It couldn't have been President Trump's handpicked U.S. attorney for New York, because when the sentence came down in May, he said that the sentence was well-deserved and should serve as a warning to would-be fraudsters that seeking to get rich by taking advantage of investors gets you only a one-way ticket to jail. So it wasn't him.
Okay, so all that sounds bad, but, you know, there's got to be an explanation. That's David Gentile. Let's look him up. Where is he? Oh, well, there we go. He's not Somalian, so who cares? Now, this admittedly is just scratching the surface, but the reason that Fox News hosted his best Turkey impression when confronted by the mayor is because he knows deep down what the reality is. This isn't about fraud. It's a distraction from Trump's many failures wrapped up in bigotry, hatred, and projection. As in, just another day for MAGA. I'm British Chris, and this is Raw America.